sure, they're actually all on the back table there by the door. Okay, now I know it's on. All right, let's stop it repeating there. Let me just tweak this microphone for a moment. Can everyone in here in the back hear me all right? Yeah, any need for more? Okay. Welcome to Computer Science E-1, Introduction to Personal Computers and the Internet. My name is David Malin, and I will be your instructor for this semester. Some of you may recall a woman's name, Laura Noble Peel, on the original course catalog. She has since moved to Minnesota, and I've been asked to take over the course in her stead. But I promise this semester you will have a fantastic time, and by the semester's end, we'll walk away with a firm grasp of both what computers are as well as what the internet is. Before we begin, let me take a quick survey of people. How many people here actually have a computer at home? If you could raise your hands. That's fantastic, because it will make our lives easier. How many people, and it's okay to raise your hand to this one, have never actually used a computer before? There's no shame in this. Okay, that's fantastic. This course will be designed to accommodate both the most novice of users, i.e. people who have not even seen or touched a computer before, as well as for the more intermediate users, people who use computers at work, people who use computers at home. Before we proceed, has everyone picked up the 4 handouts from today? If not, just at some point grab them from the white table in the back of the room, and we will discuss exactly what these handouts are for later. Okay, out of those of you that have used or have computers at home, how many of you have not used the internet before? Okay, very interesting. This is actually pretty much on par with what statistics say in the United States. For instance, our answer to the trivia question for today. Does anyone have a ballpark figure they'd like to toss out? 10 million? It's in the right range of numbers, but it's actually higher. In the back? Not that high. Not that high. It's in the millions. You are certainly not expected to know this already, so guesses are encouraged. 10 million's too low, 5 billion's too high. Here? 100 million? A little too high. That's pretty close. As of mid-1998, it was at 60 million. Now, that was up from 45 million internetworked computers only some 6 months before that. So you can only imagine what the numbers are like now and what the numbers will be like come the year 2000. This course is purely an introduction. It is a survey course on the internet and on personal computers. What we're going to do today is cover some of the administrative information for the course. What are we going to expect of you? What are you going to have to do for this course? What are we going to learn in this course? And then the latter half of the course today, what we're going to do is go ahead and proceed with a discussion and an exploration of what the internet is. Day one, we will define for you and explain what exactly this World Wide Web, what this email system you've been using at work or home actually is. Before we begin, though, are there any questions? Administrative, topical, anything goes. Okay, yes? No, as of now, I have no intentions to. That was purely sensationalistic for today. Okay, let me preface everything we are going to do in this course by saying in this classroom, there is never a dumb question, because frankly, there's no more introductory course that you could take than Computer Science E-1 here at the Extension School. So please, if nothing else, throughout this semester, never feel intimidated in asking a question of either me or of your teaching fellows. Please, we invite any and all questions. What exactly are we going to be doing in this course? Well, as you see on page 1 of your syllabus, we have a few expectations of students. And again, if you haven't picked up a syllabus yet, all of the handouts are in the back of the room. Please, at any point, if you cannot see things on the screen, cannot hear me talking, cannot hear non-Mission Impossible music coming out of the computer, please just raise your hand and we will address the issue. As you see at the top of the expectations list, weekly lectures. Plain and simple, you're already here already, so you're all doing very well in the course thus far. We will be here every Tuesday, with a couple of exceptions that are noted on the syllabus, from 5:30 until 7:30. Lectures will begin 5 minutes after 5:30, and we will conclude at 7:30 on the nose. Between lectures, what we will essentially do each week is have a 5 to 10 minute break, roughly in the middle, so that you can go grab something to eat, can take a break from listening to me. Expectations furthermore, weekly sections. You're probably familiar with the idea of sections from past schooling or from other extension school courses. Sections are going to work as follows. We have 3 outstanding TFs already hired for this course that will each week lead a group of 10 to 30 of you in a hands-on section in one of the computer classrooms in Harvard's computer labs. And it's at these sections that you'll actually take away practical and hands-on experience with the topics and with the issues that we talk about in lectures. It is crucial that in addition to attending these weekly lectures, that you do attend section, because sections will prove most entertaining as well as most valuable, and I think you will get a great experience out of actually working with the machines, because it's my philosophy that people tend to learn better by doing rather than learning solely by listening to someone else. Homework assignments, plain and simple, there will be 11 of them. If you take a look at today's assignment 1, the Internet Part 1, I trust you will find this assignment rather straightforward and rather easy. However, the first few questions of it will require that you do the reading due next week, which is notated on the syllabus. Granted, some of the future assignments will become progressively more difficult, although I do not think you will find any of the tests, any of the assignments in this course to be particularly difficult. If you do your reading, if you attend lectures and attend sections, you will do well in this course. And that is my promise to you. So in addition to doing well, you will take away a vast stronghold of knowledge. 2 hourly exams, they will be 60 minutes each. They will occur roughly halfway through the semester and at the close of the semester. You know, obviously, that lectures are going to be 2 hours each week, So what we're going to do after each of the midterms, each of these hourly exams, is we're going to treat you to 2 guest lectures. One of which is going to be, most likely, subject to his schedule, a fellow from the software industry who's currently working with his own company on developing voice recognition software. Is this a term that's familiar to people? Okay, could someone just raise your hand and tell us what is voice recognition software, though? We won't spend too much time on this, but.
It takes spoken words and translates it so that the computer can understand it and store it or feedback to that user or another user.
Exactly. It takes your spoken words, a computer that is, and then does something in response to them. So for instance, this fellow that we're going to have come speak with us develops software whereby I can speak to my computer and say, "Dear Mom," and on the screen will appear the words, "Dear Mom," without my ever having touched the keyboard. After the second hourly midterm, we will have most likely some fellows from the information technology industry joining us from their own web consulting company. This is going to be a company that produces websites commercially for companies, and I think you'll find it very interesting exactly the steps that go into that sort of development and also what it's like to actually be in the IT industry nowadays. Finally, a final project. This will be, and what I think is the most enjoyable part of the course and most fulfilling, is the creation of your own website on the internet. We will teach you how to create web pages. We will teach you how to put those web pages on the internet so that at this course's conclusion, you can write home and tell your parents that you just created your first web page and you can go visit them, or they can go visit it rather, on the internet from anywhere in the world. You will learn HTML, which is hypertext markup language, which is the programming language, so to speak, with which you create web pages. So I trust you will find that very exhilarating to finally see something of yours on the air, so to speak, internationally accessible. Learning a lot, having fun, those are pretty much given expectations for this course. Grades. As you notice above here, 40% of your grade will be determined by homework assignments. This is for the reason that it's with homework assignments that you will take the most knowledge away from this course. I do not intend for these homework assignments to test your knowledge of what I have said in class or of what your TFs have said in section, but rather to solidify what you have already learned in lecture, what you have already learned in section. So I think you will find each of them to be enjoyable in their own way, and they will not be simply cut and dry questions about what did we talk about last week. They will be much more interesting than that. More on that later. Hourly exam 1 and 2 and your final project will all be equally weighted at 20% of your grade. Participation is not factored into your grade in this course, and this is a philosophical decision of mine. I take it upon myself to be the one responsible for eliciting conversations from you in both lectures and with your TFs in section. I want this course to be a course where you can speak up at any time, answer a question, ask a question, make a comment by raising your hand. And please do not feel hindered by the size of this course or by the subject matter to ever feel disinclined to participate. I, in particular, do invite that and take that on as my responsibility to get you to participate, not yours. Books. How many people have gone to the Coop already or elsewhere to pick up the books for this course? Okay, did anyone run into any problems with securing them? There, which one is that? I don't know. Okay, they're out of one. No, let me touch on that right now. As you know, sitting in front of me here, I have 7 books. I certainly do not expect you to go out and spend hard-earned money on 7 textbooks, which will run several $100s. Instead, we have 3 required books for this course, namely the Complete Idiot's Guide to Creating an HTML Web Page, Information Technology, The Breaking Wave, and all of these are listed on your syllabus in detail, and How the Internet Works. Quick overview of what these books are going to be all about for us. Information Technology. This is essentially going to be the general textbook for the course. This book touches on everything, and it touches on everything well. You'll notice in doing your first homework assignment that all of the pages are laid out in 2-page spreads, so that essentially this book limits topics to a single piece of paper that you can look at all at once. So I think you'll find it an easy read, but I also think you'll find it a valuable read. How the Internet Works. This book I love. It is replete with pictures and arrows and very short descriptions of how the internet works. And I think you will really get a sense, particularly with the colorful graphics, etc., of what the internet is all about. We will use this essentially to bolster all of our discussions of the internet, both at the beginning of the semester and then later at the end. Finally, at the risk of insulting my audience this semester, I selected the Complete Idiot's Guide to HTML, as I mentioned. But I do think you will find this a fantastic book for the very reason that it really holds your hand through the process of creating a web page. We will walk you through this book in section, and during the latter portion of this course, we will create, as I said, your own web pages on the internet. And we will follow the directions essentially outlined in this book for the reason that once you go home or once you come back to the computer labs on weekdays or weekends, you actually have the same reference with you. You have the same teacher in hand, so to speak. You'll notice that there's a CD in the back. This contains files, computer files, containing all of the examples used in the book, which I think you'll find a valuable resource because you no longer will have to stare at a page for half an hour only to type in verbatim what that page is telling you to do. You can just copy it over to your personal computer or to whatever computer you happen to be using. Are there any questions on these 3 required books for the course? Yes? Grossman Library. As you're probably referring to my reference on the syllabus, that all of these books, required and recommended books alike, will be on reserve in Grossman Library. It is in the 2nd or 3rd floor of Sieber Hall. Sieber Hall is one of the Harvard College buildings in Harvard Yard, and pretty much you can ask anyone in the yard which building it is. If you're facing Memorial Church, as an aside though, it is going to be to your right. You cannot miss it. Let me point that out now. These books are all on reserve so that if you would rather not shell out the money for any of the books, even the required books, that's fine with me. So long as you do the readings by going to the library, for instance, that's perfectly acceptable. Recommended books. These are essentially books I like and books that I think you will find helpful. Let me jump to the How Computer Works book. This book, just like the How the Internet Works book, is a fantastic introduction to computer hardware. This book covers everything from what a bit, what a byte is, what a CPU is, what a hard drive is, all the way down to how a joystick works, how your printer works, how an Ethernet network and accelerated gaming graphics work on PC computers. It's recommended for the reason that we're only going to draw on snippets of the information in this book. So you do not have to go out and buy these recommended books. If you'd like to look at them in the library, all the better. You'll find them helpful. But do not feel that you have to spend the money on these recommended books. How Macs Work is essentially the Macintosh counterpart to this other book. I put this on reserve in Grossman and on the shelves at the Coop. For those of you that are principally Mac-oriented users already, can actually have the material taught to you from a Macintosh perspective. I would not go out and buy both of these books because you will find a lot of redundancy if you buy them at all. Finally, the latter 2 books. HTML for the World Wide Web, the Visual Quick Start Guide. This I essentially see as an intermediate book. Come the end of the semester, once you've been introduced to HTML in both section and by the Complete Idiot's Guide, you might want to pick up a book like this, or this book in particular, to take things to the next level. It's much more of a reference book than it is a hold your hands, walk you through the process kind of book. Finally, HTML, the Definitive Guide. This is essentially your intermediate to advanced web designer's book. It's a great reference book, but it's only that. This book will not teach you HTML, and this is the one they're out of? Okay, that's actually fine because we won't get to HTML until the latter third of the course, so they should presumably have the book in by then. Okay, any questions on the books for this course? Okay, and again, all of the information we just talked about is listed on your syllabus. Question?
What kind of machine do you have in the section?
Okay, that's a great segue. Sections for this course. We will be teaching sections on both Macintosh and on PC computers, i.e. computers running Windows. However, everything that we do in this course has been purposefully designed to be platform independent. That is, nothing we're going to teach you is specific to the Macintosh OS. Nothing that we teach you is specific to Windows 95, 98, NT. We're essentially going to be using software that exists on both computing platforms that you can use at home on your Mac or at home on your PC. And that is intentional because we do not want people to feel strapped by this course on having learned a platform-specific sort of material. We will use then Macs in some of the sections, PCs in some of the sections.
Is it in the book?
It will work on both. The CD in the books should work on both. It is supposed to, it is told to me, yes. Sections. Let me ask the TFs to stand up for just one moment. As I mentioned before, we're going to be offering sections in which you'll have 10 to 30 students. These are your TFs for the semester. Megan Henry, who is the head TF for this course, Matt Ferrugi, and John Hahn up on the stairs are the other two TFs. These fellows were hired for the very reason that they are experts. There is no question, they promise me, that will stump them. And if you do happen to come across such a question, well, please let me know, and we'll have a TF meeting. In any case, you will be meeting with these folks, with one of these folks, every week in section for 2 hours, in both a teaching classroom, somewhere upstairs in the Science Center, as well as in the computing classroom. And as I mentioned on the syllabus, the design of the sections is as follows. The intention of these sections is to, 1, review material that you may have found confusing in lecture, to talk about topics that we might not have gotten to in lecture. And on the flip side, the purpose of these sections is to give you, as I said before, this hands-on experience with using computers. It is in section that you will learn how to make your own web page. It is in section that you will dissect a computer and look inside and see how it functions. I think you will find sections to be a lot of fun, but obviously very valuable as well. About halfway, just one second, just about halfway through today's lecture, what we're going to do is take a break, as I mentioned before, and during that break, we're going to do sectioning. And by that, I mean we're going to pass around these sectioning forms and have you sign up for specific sections. And we will do our best to accommodate your preferences. We will be offering sections on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from either 5:30 p.m. To 7:30 or 7:30 to 9:30. But more on that once we hit the break. Okay, administratively, that's essentially all I wanted to cover. Are there questions about what we expect from you, about what you'll have to do in this course? Anything at all? Okay, fantastic. Okay, what exactly are we going to do in this course? We are essentially going to do what I think everyone is here to learn. We're going to teach you more about computers. We're going to teach you more about the internet, because as the hands showed earlier, I think a lot of you, but not all, do have some experience, if not with just computers, with computers and the internet as well. So what you will take away from this course is an understanding of what's exactly going on when you send this email to your mother, or what's exactly going on when you type in www.cnn.com, what's going on behind the scenes. But let me see exactly where everyone is at. What, if you could raise your hand to this, what are you hoping to get out of this course? If there is one question that you could ask of me right now, what would you want to get out of this course? Anything at all. Why are you sitting where you are now? Okay, fantastic. The gentleman behind. Okay, terrific. Other intentions? What's the best internet stock to buy? Okay, so you want me to make you money. Okay. But that's good. Other intentions. What do you hope to get out of this course? Why did you fill out the registration form? In the back. Okay, that's terrific. It is exactly my goal to satisfy each and every one of the things, although maybe not the internet stocks goal, in this course. The way I see this course working is as follows. What I hope you will get out of this course is, as I said, a general understanding of computers and the internet. But to the extent that you will be able to hold your own in a conversation with, say, that guy from the engineering division of your company, when you bump into someone at the water cooler at work or at school or whatever, you'll actually know what they're talking about when they mention, oh, I just got into this cool website last night, or hey, have you heard about the new problems with HTTP, or hey, I just learned HTML last night. Those kinds of things, which to you now, hopefully, since you're sitting in this course already, sounds like jargon, sounds confusing. I mean, you probably couldn't tell me the answers to those sorts of questions or chime in a conversation on those topics. My goal at the end of this semester is to empower you to have those sorts of conversations. Also, I suspect a lot of you out there face the following scenario a lot. You're working on your computer or at home or at work, and everything's fine. You know exactly where everything is. You know exactly how to do what you want to do. But as soon as, say, the nephew and the niece come over and they play some games on your computer, or the fellow from work decides to play around and install some new cool software on your computer, you come back the next day and something's different. I can't find the software. I can't open my document. I suspect this is a sort of emotion that people have felt before. You can use your computer so long as no one else touches anything. You are fine. I mean, is this a general sense among the crowd? Okay, what all of us intend to do is to make you more comfortable sitting in front of your own computer, so that if the niece or nephew screws up your computer with some hot, fangled new game, you know how to fix it. You still know where your word processor is. You still know where your resume or your important tax documents are. We expect to give you additional comfort to the computer. Also, as I alluded to before, we are going to open up and dissect a computer in this course. We will literally gut a computer, pass its parts around, talk about what exactly each of those parts are used for within the beast itself. So by the course's end, not only will you have a general understanding of how a computer works, you'll also, we hope, be more comfortable with opening up your own computer, installing your own memory, getting a sound card, getting a new video card for your computer. Now, it's all right if these terms that I'm tossing out now aren't familiar to you, because we will cover them over the course of this semester. But you should expect to be much more comfortable with actually opening that lid and fixing what someone else is going to charge you $50 or $100 just to install a little chip into the computer. With a little additional effort, you'll be able to do that sort of thing yourself. Certainly, you will be able to make your own web page by the course's end. But in addition, along the lines of being able to carry on conversations with people on relatively technical topics, what we're also going to introduce you to is the information technology media, the periodicals that you see on the shelves, PC Magazine, PC World, Mac World, Windows Magazine, Yahoo Magazine, all of these sorts of magazines that you've probably seen in Borders or at the newsstand before, but have never really felt comfortable picking up, because there's probably a lot of words, a lot of articles in there that you really have no idea how to understand. So again, what we're going to do in this course is empower you to go pay the $3.95 for the Yahoo or the PC magazine so that you can pick it up, turn to any page, and know, and finally have a clue what they are talking about in those pages. I mean, those are my goals, and if we do not succeed in those goals, I feel that that will be my failure. So I take the full burden of responsibility for getting these skills into your hands. Are there any questions now? Okay, specifically, what I'd like to do for the next 10 or so minutes is just touch on exactly what we're going to learn in this course. You've seen the synopsis, both in the course catalog and on the first page of the syllabus. The Internet, World Wide Web, Java, HTML, browsers, search engines, news readers, email, ISPs, modems, microprocessors, RAM, cache. What is it all about? We have essentially talked about what we will get out of this course, but specifically now, what kind of information are you going to feel comfortable talking about and feel comfortable reading about in a couple of weeks' time? Well, in the latter half of today, what we're going to talk about is one of the most fundamental topics in computing today. What's a client and what's a server, and why do we care what they are? And also, we're going to touch on two of the most popular and important services offered by the so-called Internet, whatever that may be, particularly email and the World Wide Web. Next week, we're going to continue our discussion of the Internet and learn more about the Internet. We're going to go over what FTP is, what listservs are, what Usenet news groups are. These are terms you might have heard or glimpsed in articles or whatnot. We're actually going to tell you, okay, well, how do you get onto these Usenet news groups? How do you participate in these listserv mailing lists? URLs, FTP, searching, how do you find what you want to find on the World Wide Web? Well, in section in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to show you some more effective search techniques so that surfing the web does not take you 2 to 3 wasted hours. You can actually get in and get out, and within 20 minutes have that piece of information that you wanted right away. File types, downloading, netiquette. Now, this is kind of an interesting term, and before we proceed, let me just see if anyone has a sense of what netiquette actually is. It's not a typo. It's not supposed to be etiquette.
My son talks like in a certain way when he's on the net.
Mm-hmm.
Like little lingo thing.
Yeah, it essentially refers to the social conventions, so to speak, that have developed in cyberspace, so to speak. This includes, if you take a look at emoticons, which is the 5th item on your definitions for today. You've probably seen something like this already in either the media or in emails addressed to you. The ever popular, what is this? It's a smiley face. Why is it written like this? Well, on your computer keyboard, you can't put characters one atop the other like that. You have to adjust accordingly to what the keyboard can offer you. So this is developed into the world-famous smiley face. You've probably also seen the sad face. There's also the devil face, and many, many, many more. Way more than there really should be nowadays. But we'll show you exactly how to use these emoticons. Social conventions as well. What is implied if I write something like this on the board? Or suppose, rather, that I'm writing an email to my mother. And I start the email with email to my mother like this. There's something interesting or notable about the way in which I've written the start of this email. Does anyone notice what is special here?
You use the uppercase capital letters for shouting.
Exactly. This is an example of what netiquette is, net etiquette. By writing in all caps, it's become understood that you are shouting at your person. I might have given it away by using this exclamation point, but the fact that the beginning of the sentence is in all caps means that I'm not saying, Mom, how could you pick me up at the end of this week from soccer camp? You're saying, Mom, how could you? And that's the implication of writing in all caps on the internet. And these are the little intricacies of the internet that you won't really find in the manual on how to use the internet. These are essentially things that people, human beings, have developed just because over time. So we're going to introduce you to those things specifically and to much, much more so that you don't walk away from this course having offended everyone that you emailed during the semester. The week after, we're going to conclude our discussion of the internet. How does the internet work physically? This is the stuff that I find particularly interesting because we can talk about using the web. We can talk about emailing our friends and family. But how is the email getting there? How am I getting this web page from Japan onto my computer in Cambridge, Massachusetts? Well, we're going to talk about things like LANs, which are local area networks, WANs, which are wide area networks, essentially bigger networks of computers, DNS, IP addresses, host names, terms which you may or may not have heard before, but in 2 weeks' time you will have heard of them. Backbones, ISPs, Ethernet, routers, modems, firewalls, all of these terms refer to physical or conceptual ideas that play a very important role in how the internet works today. So by week 3 of this course, my promise to you is that you will be able to explain to your spouse, your family, your friends, or coworkers exactly what the internet is, what you can do on the internet, and how the internet works. So in 3 weeks' time, you will have a strong understanding of what the internet is and also how to explain what it is and how it works to someone else. In 4 weeks' time, we're going to embark onto an adventure. And this is the stuff I like most about computers, is the physical computers themselves. I mean, how does a computer work? When you throw on the power switch, I mean, my God, how does the computer know that it's supposed to load up the Windows 95 splash screen and then put your green desktop and then put your My Computer over here and your recycling bin or your trash can and your hard drive and Apple menu on the screen? There's a lot of effort involved behind the scenes there. And we're actually going to rip open the top of a computer and gut it and show you, well, how did those pictures get there? When you save a document on your computer, well, where is it being saved? If you're not printing it out, how could you possibly save something that looks like this, a 10-page document, in a machine that looks like that? We'll show you what's going on there. Bits, bytes, buses, CPUs, RAM, ROM, etc. These are all terms you've probably heard about before, but we're actually going to get our hands dirty and take a look at what they physically are. More about computer hardware, floppy disks, hard drives, CD-ROM, DVD, etc., etc. We are going to cover anything and everything related to computer hardware so that when you pick up that magazine or the periodical advertising computers for sale, parts for sale, well, you're going to know that, oh, well, I would get a hard drive because I need more space in my computer, or I would get more RAM for my computer because it's being very slow right now. We are going to empower you to go into a computer store and with your wallet in hand, go around to shelves and pick out exactly what you need. In fact, one of the assignments is going to be, and you will have several weeks' time to do this, to go spend some virtual dollars that I will give you on paper. And you will go to Micro Center or go to CompUSA. And within the constraints of a budget imposed by me and the TFs, we'll have to purchase, so to speak, a computer according to certain specifications, certain types of software, all the while remaining within your budget so that you, as a student, but playing the role of a consumer, have to debate, well, I could get more RAM, more memory for my computer, but then I really can't afford that really nice graphics design program, Adobe Photoshop, that would take advantage of that RAM. So we're going to make you think about the very issues that people like myself and the TFs often think about when we go out and buy computer hardware for ourselves. So by the course's end, you will not feel intimidated by those salesmen. Well, you might still feel intimidated by the salesman at CompUSA, but you will not feel intimidated by the flyers in the newspaper or the price tags on the shelves. We then conclude our discussion of hardware and talk about computer software. Now, software, you can kind of cheat by looking at the board, but can someone give me a definition, not using the words on the board, of what computer software is? Hardware is kind of a given. It's, you know, the physical stuff. That piece of machinery over there is hardware, computer hardware. But what's software? Yeah, exactly. Programs, the stuff that you can put into a computer, the data, so to speak. Once you do the assignment for the next couple of weeks in this book, Information Technology, you'll come across a very good and kind of cute definition of what hardware and software is. This author defines hardware as anything you can kick about a computer. Anything you can't kick is software. So think about that, and when you read the book, that'll make even more sense. We'll talk about operating systems, the Mac OS, Unix, Windows, terms you've heard before, if not used before. User interfaces, GUIs and CBIs, acronyms you may have heard of before. GUI, let me just, random trivia. Does anyone know what GUI stands for? Back here. Exactly, and what does that mean, though? Okay, what you see on the screen. Graphical user interface. Contrast that, if you're familiar with DOS, with the character-based interface that DOS is, whereby you can only run programs, only do things to the computer by typing at the keyboard. No mouse, no pointing and clicking, no dragging, no windows. Downloading software. We'll show you how to go out on the internet and download software for your computer. And then we'll conclude a week later with more about computer software, with the types of software out there. Word processors, desktop publishing, databases, some more fun issues like software licensing. Why can I not go out and buy Microsoft Word for myself, albeit with a price tag of $500, and give it to all of my friends? I mean, physically, there's nothing stopping me. I just put the CD in the drive, hit install, and it installs, and the program works. But what are the legal constraints behind what you can actually do with software, and why does it exist? And then a particularly timely issue, Y2K. What does that stand for? Year 2000. You'd be hard-pressed not to know what that term is nowadays, but we'll talk about what it actually is. I'm sure you all know that the Y2K problem is a big deal come the year 2000, but why? How did we screw up? How did the government and companies and programmers in the past years create this problem for us? By 16 March, you will actually understand what this problem is and why it's so difficult and so expensive to fix. And then everybody's favorite. We take a break for a week, and I test you. Hourly exam number 1. As I mentioned, it will be 60 minutes and will be followed by a very exciting guest lecture. And then we'll really take a break, a spring break. And you will have no section or lecture this week, as is mentioned on the syllabus there. This, incidentally, was essentially my having fun with the presentation software, trying to use as many animation graphics as I could. April, concluding, we're going to get into multimedia. How do you put sound and graphics? How do you create cool graphics? How do you create graphics that are used on the web? Well, we're going to show you how to do that. In section, you'll make your own cool, personalized graphic. A week later, we get to the meaty stuff, HTML. Now, could someone tell me what this means? Has anyone ever seen that before? Okay. Does it look confusing, complex? Could you write that yourself for assignment 1? Sorry?
Like a form letter or something where you would it might draw like names or titles off of a list that you might have and give it in the same letter?
That's the idea of it. More specifically, though, it's HTML. This is the stuff that makes up web pages. I will show you once we're done with these slides exactly what the output of this HTML is. But I hope this looks confusing right now, and I hope it looks difficult, because you will be quite surprised on April 13th to learn that this stuff is not that difficult to do. The web pages that you've been browsing at home and at work are made up, yes, of very esoteric information and tags and text, as they're called. But by April 13th, you'll be writing that stuff yourself. And you'll have assignments where you're writing that stuff. And I promise it's not as hard or as confusing as it may look on first glance. We will then continue for a week talking about cool stuff in HTML. How do you add images, animations, sounds? How do you put tables? And how do you format web pages in a cool way? And then finally, we get to programming. You'll continue at this point working on HTML and working on your final projects in the sections. But we're going to proceed in lecture with other topics for the following reason. You will find that particularly with HTML, you will learn best by doing, not by hearing. So what's going to happen is I'm really not going to teach you HTML. I'm going to teach you some of the concepts behind it, some of the things to watch out for. But it's going to be up to your TFs to actually show you how to write that kind of stuff, how to program in that fashion. Because with them, you will be sitting in front of a computer typing things as you're being taught. And I think you will find that a particularly effective way to learn this programming language. Programming, though, in lecture, viruses. What's a virus? Why are they so bad? Who writes them? Java, JavaScript, methodologies, object-oriented programming, terms which you've probably heard before, but presumably have no clue really what they mean. And then we'll get to an intersection between HTML and programming. You've perhaps heard of Amazon.com, other sites that you can buy stuff with. Well, Amazon.com has something, albeit more complicated, but something that is reminiscent of this HTML here. I mean, they've got to create for you a user interface, so someone has created a web page with that kind of code to allow you to buy books. But there's also more stuff involved there. There are programs that people have coded, programmers have created for Amazon.com so that they can accept your credit card and can bill your credit cards, can send the appropriate number of books to your home. We're going to talk about that week cookies. Cookies are a term you might have heard of before, but what are they really about? How do they get on your computer? We're going to talk about how websites track who you are, how they remember when you go back to Amazon.com what's in your shopping basket, so to speak. Parental controls, cryptography, all very timely issues. And then we take another break, hourly exam number 2. And then finally, the course will wrap up essentially with an overview of what are the implications of all this stuff that we've been learning? What's the point of all of it? And I trust by then you will be able to certainly carry on your own conversations with people about IT information, but you'll also feel more comfortable yourself using your computer, shopping for a computer, fixing your computer. Now, with that said, that is our intention for this course. That is the play-by-play for week to week. Does anyone have any questions, excitements, disappointments about what we're going to be talking about in this course? I essentially hope to touch on anything and everything that you might actually find practical, because more than making this an academic course, so to speak, it will be a practical course. You will take away tangible skills and practical knowledge from this course ultimately. Are there any questions about that? No? Okay. Some of you are probably a little uncomfortable still using Macs, using PCs. And as you may have noticed on the syllabus, sections are going to start next week. We're going to throw you in front of Macs and or PCs starting next week. So how are we going to help you through this? Well, certainly in sections, we will never assume that you know how to do something if we haven't showed it to you before. Sections do not suppose that you know what you're doing. Our intention is to teach you during sections how to do what you're supposed to be doing. But to help you out, what we've decided to offer on various Saturdays during the month of February are optional workshops where you'll learn what an Apple menu is, how do you print, how do you format a disk, what's in the A drive, what's the C drive, how do you copy and paste. Essentially, we're going to teach you in these optional workshops platform-specific skills, i.e. skills that will help you use Macs or help you use PCs. But these are going to be skills that will serve you throughout the semester, and that's why we're offering them so soon. These are skills so that, come time to make your own web pages, well, you already know how to copy and paste. You already know how to copy part of your web page from here and just paste it over there. We're going to give you these basic skills. So sometime either next week in lecture or in your sections next week, we will announce when these optional workshops will be offered. They'll be 2 hours, though, 1.5 to 2 hours in length. They'll be offered on various Saturdays throughout the month of February, and they will be tailored specifically to Mac and PC platforms. You'll be welcome to attend one of them, say a Mac one, or both of them, a Mac and a PC one, etc. They are purely optional, however, and they are intended to help you through this course. Okay, are there any questions? Okay. Yes, in the back.
I'm just curious, with all of the computer skills, how come you didn't have a syllabus posted on the internet?
It is posted on the internet. If you take,
Actually, I looked for it when I registered for this course because I registered for a couple other courses also
okay,
as a degree candidate, and I did not find it. And I'm pretty internet capable now.
okay. How long ago did you look, though?
Well, back when I registered for it, which was probably in the first 2 days of registration, because I have limited normal classes.
Okay.
Classes I had to be registered for.
Okay, the short answer to it is that it has been up for a couple of months. It's possible that the extension school had their link broken from the course catalog. What I can reassure you is that it has been there, and if you turn to page 2, and this is something I was going to touch on later, there is a course website, as this student just mentioned. And I'll show you exactly why that's going to prove helpful for us later. But it does contain, among other things, electronic versions, i.e. versions of these documents, anything we hand out in lecture or sections on the web, so that if you happen to miss a lecture or happen to miss a section for personal reasons, you can always be sure to go online and get those documents for yourself. Sections. Any other questions before we proceed? Yes? Sure. The question is, could I talk for a moment about how you can utilize your computers at home for this course? Well, everything that we do in section, as I said, will be platform independent, which means that even if you're being taught in section on a Mac, you'll be able to do the exact same things at home, maybe just with differently named software on your PC. Essentially, we'll be using the web in section. We'll be using a program called Microsoft Word, which you're probably already familiar with, which is a word processor, a typewriter type program. Adobe Photoshop, which is a graphics program. But for the most part, we're going to be using programs, we're going to be using Netscape, and we're going to be using a program called Telnet, which will allow you to access the Harvard email system. At home, you will be able to email your course head, or your TFs rather, or communicate with other students. You will be able to work on your web page at home. Provided you have an internet connection, you'll be able to do or practice everything we do in section at home, with 1 or 2 exceptions. The question is, would you need Telnet? Yes, but as you'll learn in section, the software that this course is going to use, for the most part, is freely available. And you can download for free most of the software we're going to use onto your home computer. Okay, does that answer your question? Okay. What is a computer? Let me just toss this out right away. A computer, at its most basic level. This is, after all, Introduction to Personal Computers, so let's introduce ourselves. Anyone? What is a computer? Okay, yes? Oh, I'm sorry, electronic device, okay. A typewriter and a calculator put together. That's an interesting definition and fairly accurate. Other comments? I mean, what's a computer? It allows you to store information, exactly. Other comments on what a computer does? The way most people, and at least I certainly see computers, is that they're intended to be a time saver, if nothing else. As you'll learn too, when we get to our programming and our HTML lectures, we're going to see how logical everything is about the fundamentals of a computer. Now, let me qualify that by saying there's a lot of things about Windows and the Mac OS that aren't quite logical. You've probably stumbled across those bugs before. But programming, which is the creation of programs, software that computers run, is something that's very methodical. For instance, how would I go about writing a program? Well, it depends. What task might I do daily that I could simulate with a computer? For instance, how about just waking up in the morning and putting on my shoes? You could actually write a program for that and tell a computer, okay, wake up in the morning, go find shoes, go find socks, put on shoes, put on socks. Now, the fascinating things about computers is that they can do things like this, albeit not physical things, at a much faster rate than human beings can actually do themselves. And what you're going to learn about computers is that they empower us to implement procedures that by hand might take us a very long time. To type something up on a typewriter and fix it would take incessantly long unless we could actually just go back and edit things without retyping documents. So what I would like to do now is defer further discussion of what computers are for a later week. Because what we're going to do with the latter half of this lecture is embark on our tour of what the internet is. Now, before we do that, though, I'd like to do sectioning for the course. And it looks like we will be fine with our current staffing needs for this course. As of this morning, 59 students were registered for this course. So what I'd like to do now is go ahead and have everyone sign up for their sections for this course. The TFs will go ahead and pass around these forms. What you're going to see on the back of this form are 2 lines, one of which asks you for your name, the other of which asks you for your email address, if any. And at the bottom of the sheet, what you'll see is 3 boxes. Specifically, we're offering sections on Tuesday nights, 5:30 to 7:30, Wednesday nights, 7:30 to 9:30, and Thursdays, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. Now, I cannot stress enough that this course is intentionally designed to be platform independent. It won't matter if you're in a Mac section or if you're in a PC section. So do not, just one moment, do not choose your section preferences based on what kind of computers you use at home. Rather, choose them on the basis of what time and what day works best for you. Now, you'll notice there is a Tuesday section from 7:30 to 9:30. I know a lot of you may commute or may only be able to take one evening out of your days. Out of curiosity, how many people here are from New Hampshire? Anyone? Okay, people from Vermont, Connecticut. This is actually very interesting because last semester when this course was taught, there were a number of people from Connecticut, New Hampshire, and Vermont. Is anyone here not living in Massachusetts? Okay, all the better, but that doesn't mean you don't have a commute. And what we're offering intentionally on Tuesdays after lecture from 7:30 to 9:30 is one of the sections. And this is intentionally offered for those of you that don't want to have to trek to Harvard's campus twice a week. You can stay here, albeit for 4 hours, but I promise you that sections and lectures will certainly serve to keep you awake during that time. But bear in mind that that option is available to you. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. I'll walk around and answer any questions. Once you're done filling out the forms, please pass them to my right, to your left over here, and leave them on the floor for the TFs to pick up. And let's come back here at 6:40, and we'll continue our discussion and embark on it on the internet.
If I don't know, I gotta check at home. Can I email you tomorrow?
Sure, that's fine, certainly. What's that?
We counted about 85 or something right now.
Did you? Okay, just one second. We're at 85. Let me take a quick survey, actually. If you could stop filling out the forms, because I don't want to cause you unnecessary work. How many people here are definitely taking this course? How many people have decided that as of now? Okay, and how many people are on the fence or are pretty sure they're not going to take the course? Okay, I apologize for the confusion, but what I want to do on the basis of numbers now is give you a different form. It's the same idea, but based on those hand raises, what I want to do is offer a 4th section for this course. One moment, please, though. Okay, we're at 89. We're at how many did you
I
count?
think she said 85.
85?
Yeah. Do you want to have them just write in?
Yeah, they could
another
write in the other section if they prefer. You could write
Yeah.
it on the
87. We can only do 75. Let's do, no,
You can only have 75.
all right, let's do this. Okay. We apologize for the confusion. We just don't want to have to do this again next week. If you could do the following, what we're going to do is stick with these forms. But if you have any interest in the following section, please just make note of it. And the additional section that we are going to offer is on Thursday from 7:30 to 9:30. You don't have to rank that as one of your preferences, but in the event that we have to hire a fourth TF for this course, what we want to do is allow the overflow to go into this section. So if that could work for you, or if you'd like that section, please just make note of that on your sheet for now. Now we'll leave you alone to fill out these forms.
Do you see there are 85 people on here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
It could be tight, but there will be drops.
right. That's what, yeah.
Worst case, we'll deal with it later, but if it's 85 and there were about 6 or 7 hands that weren't up,
Sure.
we should probably stay with this, because otherwise we're going to have to move people out of a
Right,
section.
right.
Okay, how do you think people are doing? It's a quiet audience.
Yeah, good though.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it? Are you being serious?
I'm being
Very
serious.
good.
Okay.
Be serious. You never know.
Well, you're already hired, so you don't have to prove anything.
Right.
No, it's good.
Okay. The sectioning is always tricky.
Yeah.
If we had 100, I'd pass out the other forms, but 85
Yeah,
is,
on the line.
yeah.
I don't think everybody is.
Just a reminder, when you are done with the forms, you're welcome to walk around, take a break, use the restrooms in the basement. Just be sure to be back here at 6:40 and we'll proceed. Yeah, I asked the people to put them on the floor. And remember to just leave the forms to your left at the end of the aisle on the floor.
Another email account if like we have one already through Harvard. I work for Harvard, so
Is it a FAS account or is it a different address? What's the address of the account? Your current account?
Jason_Estes at harvard.edu.
Yeah, do go ahead and get the FAS account because otherwise you're not going to be able to do the same steps that the other students are doing.
So just follow whatever steps are on that sheet as far
Yep.
as getting one.
Yeah, and I'll go over that later before we leave, but yeah. Hi.
Hi. My question is because my native language is not English,
Okay.
and I signed for the course today.
Okay.
I don't know if it's possible or not.
To take the course?
I just wanted to ask this.
In terms of a language barrier, do you mean, or? I had a couple of students in the class last semester who didn't speak great English, and they did all right.
Because my score from the placement test is 66.
Okay.
I want to make a management course, that's what I'm taking. I want to take this one.
Okay, I would say do stick with the course because I think it'd be a shame if you deferred it only for language reasons. I mean, you certainly seem to be speaking on a good enough level that.
Yeah, right now, I think I understood everything.
Okay, that's good. I don't think. I mean, fortunately, a lot of the terms we're going to discuss in this course are defined in English, no matter the language you speak. But why don't you do this? If you ever feel you're having trouble, speak with either me or, first and foremost, speak with your TF, whoever that ends up being, just so that they can be aware of just the problems you're having, just understanding, perhaps. I don't think it'll prove a debilitating factor, but let us know, though, if you're having trouble, and we will help you out.
Okay, very good. That's all.
Okay, great. Hi.
I have a friend who's also a degree candidate here who took this course last semester.
Okay.
Who said that despite the fact that you claim that it's platform independent, that it was an incredibly big headache for him having to do things on a Mac. He said things are different despite the fact that you say they're platform independent. There are different ways of doing things on a Mac, and he'd get like halfway through something, and then he'd get stuck on something, and it would be an enormous problem for him. So I want to know, in an age when Bill Gates basically has the entire market sewn up, and like anyone who buys a Mac is basically stupid and should be shot, why we have to do these things on Macs?
Two issues. One is it is easier to teach on Macs for people who have never used computers before, or
We're all going to be using
the twofold and the more significant reason is because of space limitations.
Okay, so even for $1,200, we don't merit labs.
Harvard does not have an incredible computing facility right now, so we are only able to use what they can schedule us for.
Okay, well, due to a school schedule, I can only do one of these sections. Is
Okay.
that going to be a problem?
No, I mean that's if you can't make any of the others, make sure you put an X through that box.
Okay.
Okay, sure. And I'm sorry for the emphasis in the sections on the Macs, but it's what they could schedule us for. So.
Okay, what time are the things going to be offered on Saturdays? Because I only work 2 shifts a week, like 2 days a week. I work a double on Friday and double on Saturday, but I need to have one other day a week open.
Okay. It's going to most likely be in the afternoon between 1 and 5, but speak with your TF next week about.
Because I know nothing about Macs. I'm obviously going to have to learn, and I can't afford to take time off from work.
Right. Once we haven't booked the rooms yet for the workshops, but speak with either me or the TFs next week when we announce the specific times, because we're going to have to take it based on availability. But if your TF or myself needs to meet with you outside of the workshop, I mean that's fine. We'll help you out even if it's not within the workshop. Sure. Hi.
I need your signature.
Oh, okay, sure.
I didn't get your name. David?
I'm David. Yes.
David, last name?
Malin.
Okay.
Okay.
I think it's the section. Need something harder. This one. Do you have a bowl?
Okay. Let me see.
Where do we put these, Professor?
Oh, just put them on the end of the steps, and the TFs will collect them. Yep. Here we go.
I have to go through several
Oh,
pages.
sure.
That's right. Another one
Okay.
couldn't come today because of flu. but
Oh,
I'm
sure,
doing
sure.
good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What I know how you sort of unofficially sort of help people. Like a gentleman lives in Somerville. He's sort of has a complicated setup to have people, have someone go over and set it up for him. Like, is there anything? Can we refer people?
We
or-
can't do in-room type stuff officially. If you or you want to refer someone to do it for outside consulting type work, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay.
But it's not something we can offer for the course.
Yeah, that's what I know it's not for the course, but just yeah.
Okay.
So that's okay if we just do it.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's
I mean,
fine.
it's just like-
All the better. Yeah, if you have the time, go for it. Hi, did you have a question or something?
I just want to ask you, is it okay to work in class? Because before I choose my section, I thought it was just going to be on Tuesday,
Okay.
but then it's talking about Wednesday and Thursday. Because I work naturally to 5:30. I told them I leave like 10 minutes early
Okay.
so I can make it here because I live right across the street at the University Health Services.
Okay, sure.
Now, is it okay if I walk in like 5-10 minutes late? It doesn't really matter, does it?
Well, it shouldn't be a huge deal, but certainly, any minutes you miss could be potentially valuable. If it's only 5 to 10 minutes and that's your preference, I would stick with it. If we're talking 15 to 20, then I would suggest another section.
Yeah. Okay, so it doesn't matter. I can choose.
Yeah, no, 5-10 minutes I think is reasonable. Hi. Oh, were you here first? Or?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, this is the ideal section for me to attend.
Okay.
But I mean, I've never used a Mac, and like we don't have one at home. I've not used them at work. This isn't going to make any difference.
No, I mean, granted, it might feel a little difficult at first, but that's natural. But the purpose of these workshops that we mentioned and the purpose of having the TFs in the computer labs with you is to walk you through steps. So we will not leave anyone behind, even if you've never touched a Mac before.
Okay.
Is that-
Well, I mean, so am I going to be able to just apply this to my PC at home?
Essentially, we will instruct people on how to make the leap after a couple of weeks have passed, but essentially it won't be a large leap because the software we're using, as I said, will be almost identical on both platforms. But we will walk you through inconsistencies in the software on different platforms, if that makes sense. So in short, don't worry about picking the Mac section because we will help you bridge the gap between Macs and PC differences.
Okay, and I should still get my FAS computer account. I mean, through work, I have a hard
Right, you do need, and I'm going to touch on this later, you do need to have this because otherwise you won't be able to do what we're doing in section.
So did you you registered your email account?
I have a similar question. I have a Harvard account through work. Do I need an FAS account also? or
Yes.
Can I still?
Yeah, I'll announce this officially, but yes, because otherwise you won't be able to log into the computers in the Science Center because you have to authenticate.
Okay.
So it is important.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Hi.
From 14
Okay.
to 30th, I'll be out of the country.
Okay.
So do you think I can take that test earlier?
Yeah, we can talk about that. Why don't, if you could contact me, say this week or the week before you leave about changing the date for you, that's fine. We can work something out. We can either do it before you leave or after. Yeah. Sure, that's fine. Sure.
I've used the Mac a little bit. I use a PC all day, and I think all my computer knowledge is from. Am I gonna find a big adjustment, or am I like if I'm practicing, or am I?
Right.
Is the knowledge I'm gonna intake gonna screw me up as far as?
No.
Thursday's bad for me.
Okay.
Just I have a long commute. I have a second job, and I'm taking another class.
Sure.
I'm trying to like work, and then Tuesday looks like the day that.
I just want to do a lookup on someone.
Okay, go ahead.
Is the screen on?
No, I don't know how to turn it off. No, don't worry about it because as I was just telling a couple of other students, the only differences really between Macs and PCs for the purposes of this course is how you launch the software and what software you launch. Okay. But once the program's loaded, it's going to be identical on both platforms. So I wouldn't worry about it.
Are they going to teach us both though? Like, even though we're learning on a Mac, are we still going to learn how to do it on
You'll
a
learn
PC?
mostly on the Mac. But as I said, the software is going to exist identically for the most part on the PCs. So what we will do, if anything, is at least show you how to get to that point of similarity on the PC platform. Like we'll show you how to launch the program on a PC to get to the point where you're already familiar from section. So you won't have a...
These definitely aren't going to change. Like this section's definitely going to be using
Right,
Mac.
that will definitely be using Macs.
Does the extension school have? Did they have workshops for registering users?
Yes, I'm going to talk about that. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me.
In this lecture?
Yep. Before we leave today.
We're going to talk a little bit more about your email.
Did you have a question?
Yeah. So.
Oh, is it announcing?
Should be fine then.
Thanks.
Yeah. That's you.
Yeah. Are you a Harvard instructor? A daytime Harvard instructor?
No,
This
not
is-
daytime,
this
just
still
evening.
doesn't- So this still doesn't qualify as Harvard instructor. It's within the course requirements for those in the degree programs.
Okay, can you say that again?
Well, there are, if you noticed in the catalog, there's a Harvard instructor and I guess adjunct.
Oh, okay.
Whereas I'm required to take a certain number of Harvard instructor courses.
Oh.
My requirement.
Interesting. I'm not sure how the red tape works on that. I do know that the extension school does treat all of its faculty as quote-unquote instructors, no matter whether they also teach for the college or if they just work in the real world. But I would defer to the registrar. Well, kind so I can't specifically answer that question. But. Okay. Sure. Hi.
How late is the coop open?
The coop.
Or can I get these books elsewhere, like New England Book Fair?
You might be able to get them there. I haven't checked if they're in stock. The coop is right on the corner, out next to Out of Town News, next to the red
I know
line.
where the coop is located. I just
Oh.
don't know what their hours were.
It's probably something reasonable, like 9 to 7 or so.
Okay, so like after this course, they won't be open.
They might. I would check honestly, but I don't know offhand.
I didn't sign up to take this course for credit, but I might want to pump in credit later.
Okay.
You're probably not the right person to ask this question to.
It's
obviously I want to do work.
right. It's doable within a certain deadline. You can switch it. I would check with the registrar though as to what that deadline is.
Okay, any other questions I have are not that important.
Oh, okay. Well, do catch me after if you have any other questions. Okay, let's get started in a minute or so. Megan? I noticed one fellow had picked up the 4-box section, so just make sure that you notice that. I think he might have grabbed it off the desk.
Oh, okay.
But most people should have this 3-block one.
Okay.
Just stick with that, and even if we overflow past 25 or 30, we'll deal with that next week.
Okay, great.
Okay. Okay. I just need to grab that. Okay, in about 45 minutes, the TFs are going to come back and post on the walls the section lists. Sections, as you notice on the syllabus, will begin next week, i.e. next Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday. So when we conclude today, essentially the lists will be posted around this room, and just take notice of what section you were assigned to. We will do our best, as I said, to schedule you for your first choice section. In the event we have to give you your second or third choice, and you really are not satisfied with that, try to stick it out for a week or so, a week or two, just to see if things settle down, because within a week or two, we'll know exactly what the enrollment numbers are going to be for the course, and we can probably then shift people from one section to another. So within a week or two, do just speak with me or with your TF about switching sections if necessary. We're not here to tie your hands. We do want to accommodate you, but numbers dictate that we do it in a reasonable fashion. Okay, the internet. What is the internet? Before I define it, I'd like to get a sense of what you think it is right now. Now again, there are no dumb questions, and I don't expect you to know this. But what is the internet in your understanding, rightly or wrongly? Okay. A set of computers that allows you to access websites was the answer. That's on target, yes. In a broader sense, though, what is the internet? That's a much more accurate definition. The internet is essentially a network of networked computers. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, essentially, consider a simplified scenario of what the internet is. Suppose this is some office building downtown. And there are several companies in this building, all of whom are using desktop computers in their offices, all of whose computers are connected by some sorts of wires throughout the building. Within this company, there exists what's called an intranet. Now, this is a term spelled I-N-T-R-A, net. And just like an intrastate highway, which is a road that can only take you within the bounds of Massachusetts, for instance, an intranet is a network of computer, whereby a network of computers is simply computers that are attached by wires, plain and simple. An intranet is a network of computers within some geographical locale, for instance, within an office building. Now, this is essentially an arbitrary definition because buildings can vary in size. You could have an intranet in your house. If you have your laptop connected to your desktop computer, well, you have an intranet because it is within the bounds of your house. So it's kind of an arbitrary distinction, geographically defined, but essentially intranets are small networks. Now contrast that with a term called internet. Now notice the lowercase I here. Now without my actually defining this for you, what do you think internet, lowercase I, is exactly? I mean, consider in your mind the highway example, the intrastate highway example. Exactly. What an internet is, lowercase I, is, well, you have some other office building downtown and another one, all of whom have computers. I'm just using this X to signify wires in the computer, all of whom have their own networks in their computers. An internet is when these guys have wires atop their buildings connecting them to other computers, thereby creating an internet. So internet, lowercase I, is simply a network of networks. Now let me just pause for a moment and point out that a lot of the definitions that I'm going to be mentioning today are printed on this sheet, because it is my philosophical opinion that I would rather you listen to things we're saying or participate in lectures rather than writing down tedious definitions and my writing them down on the board. So oftentimes if I gloss over a definition, it's because it's printed down for you. But internet and intranet, all lowercase i's, are not on those sheets. So that's why I wanted to give you this pictorial representation. Okay, so now we have intranet and internet defined. What is internet? Capital I, that you hear about in the media all too often today. We've gotten ideas about it, but now can you extend the example we have on the board here and define for me what internet, capital I, is? Just continue the train of logic that we've just used for these two definitions. Exactly. Connections between networks, essentially. I mean, essentially, the internet, capital I, is the all-inclusive definition of what networks are. The internet is a network of networks of networks of networks of networks, etc., and it doesn't end until you get to a network of, say, 2 computers or 2 buildings. So the internet is essentially a global network of computers. Now, just out of curiosity, by what means do you think these computers are linked? You can probably guess that within the bounds of a building, you have wires physically connecting to computers. But how about throughout the world? I mean, we certainly don't have wires stretching from Massachusetts all the way to Japan underwater, so far as I know. Satellites is one way that the internet is governed. I apologize if I've transposed the double T and the double L. Other means. We've got wires already. Microwave dishes are another way. Now these are essentially platters that buildings have atop of one another. For a long time, Harvard was actually connected to the internet in the following way. All of the campus was physically wired with cabling. But that cabling ultimately extended to a big microwave dish, which is essentially like a satellite dish, essentially, atop a building called Williams James Hall, which is just a very tall building in the corner of campus. That microwave dish was aimed at some building at MIT. So that suppose this is Harvard here with their little microwave dish here, suppose this is MIT here with their own microwave dish. All of Harvard's internet connectivity, all of the email that I send from my computer, all of the web pages that I pull down to my computer, were traveling literally through the air, so to speak. So the interesting point here is that the internet is not necessarily a physical network, so to speak. You don't have to have wires. You don't have to have a modem over phone wires even nowadays. I mean, you can have this data beamed across satellites or between microwave dishes. And there are other means by which computers are connected on the internet, but we're going to defer discussion of those until week 3, when we actually delve into the terms like routers and firewalls, etc., that govern how the internet works physically. Okay, so the internet is this global network of interconnected computers. What's that good for? I mean, can someone toss out one benefit of what this supposed internet is? First thing that comes to mind. Communication is a good benefit of the internet. What else is the advantage of having all these things connected? Unlimited information. Exactly. For instance, I can go find out about companies in Japan simply by going to the address of that company in Japan physically with my web browser. Yes? I'm sorry? Time saving. Yes. For instance, email. This is something we'll touch on in a few minutes, but email is a means by which you can send messages electronically to other people on the internet. The cool thing about email is that when you hit send, be it in AOL or on the Harvard email systems in Eudora, whatever email you program you use, if any at all right now, it's sent at the speed of light. Email travels at the speed of light, as does everything you do on the internet. Because of these physical wire and these microwave connections, data on the internet travels, theoretically speaking, at the speed of light. Practically speaking, you know that when you're on your 28.8 modem at home dialing up to AOL, you're not seeing all of AOL's buttons at the speed of light, certainly. But that's because of physical limitations on the speed of phone wires, on the speed of your modem, the speed of your computer, etc. Again, details that we'll get to more in week 3. But yes, speed of communications, exactly. Other advantages. Business. Many companies now have, within their own companies, intranets. But Microsoft, for instance, huge company that it is, has satellite offices in Massachusetts and in North Carolina and in Texas. But what they're able to do because of the existence of the internet is pretend that everyone sitting at their computers in Seattle, Washington, where their main offices are, they can participate, so to speak, in a computer network with their counterparts in Texas and in Massachusetts and in North Carolina. That is, they can send email to each other, certainly. That's a given. But you could also sit down at your computer in Seattle, Washington, go to the File menu, go to Print, and print your document from Seattle, Washington, and have it show up on someone's printer in Massachusetts because the internet exists. Okay. How did the internet get here? And this is a more interesting question. It's totally rational that companies would want to wire themselves together, but where did the internet come from? Why did anyone bother to create these satellites? And it did. That was exactly the answer I'm looking for. The military. This is an interesting historical fact, but nevertheless still very relevant to the form and function of the internet. The internet was established as a means of military communication so that you could have some military base, for instance, over here in Connecticut. Though I don't know why there'd be a military base in Connecticut, but it's where I'm from, with a military base, say, in Texas. Now, even as early as the 1950s and 60s, there did exist electronic communication of form. There wasn't the World Wide Web back then. There wasn't email in the fashionable sense that it exists now. But there did exist this means of transferring data across different computers. But what the military's intention was to do was to create a network of computers, an internet, lowercase I, of computers that would withstand nuclear devastation, that would withstand wars, that would withstand disruption of services. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, rather than just wiring their Connecticut base to their Texas base, they wired their Connecticut base and their Texas base to California as well, and to other parts of the country. So essentially, if all of these red dots, Michigan and whatnot, signify different military bases, what they did, rather than connect these bases point to point with wires like this, what they did rather than do this was actually create cross wirings, a sort of web of wiring, so that not only could you go from California to Texas, you could also reach computers over a network that goes straight to Massachusetts. So essentially they created a web of wiring, etc., so that even if some foreign country or some domestic terrorist detonated whatever kind of bomb or nuclear weapon, etc., in, say, the Texas area and knocked out this whole military base, well, their intra-military communications would not be severed because they could just reroute their data and send all of their email or all their top secret documents or whatever it may be. Rather than this way here, they could send it from here, 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 here. Whoops. Oh, no, there's a line. And go straight to Connecticut. So the purpose of the military, the aim of the military, rather, was to create a network that was indestructible. Even if you took out one node, the beast would continue to survive, so to speak. This original internet was called ARPANET, which is a term that is mentioned on your sheet of definitions. Does that make sense, though, the whole design of the internet, why it exists in that fashion? Still wires, so to speak. I mean, nowadays there's much more non-physical connections. I mean, now you do have satellites and microwaves, et cetera. The idea, though, essentially was that rather than create one path from a point X to point Y, you would create a point from point X to Y and also XZY, XAY, et cetera. Now, I mentioned the term web before, and I only mention it a web because it's kind of like a spider's web. Every point is connected to every other point. Do not confuse that with the term World Wide Web exactly, which is something we'll get to in a couple of minutes. But are there any questions on the origins of the physical internet itself? This is why it was created. It then became used by universities and academic institutions for the purpose of distributing work back and forth between professors and whatnot. And nowadays, as you all probably know, it's been very much commercialized and brought into the mainstream life by putting commercial websites on, by putting personal homepages on the web, et cetera, et cetera. It's much more of a mainstream institution. But the important thing to remember is that the internet did not just surface in, say, 1992 or 1994. The internet has been around for some 30 or 40 years. It's just we, average people, just never really heard about it or were never given access to it. Okay, are there any questions on just what the internet is? Okay, well, we know what the internet is then, presumably. What kind of services does it provide us with? I mentioned email earlier, but before we go into email, I want to mention one other service, which is the web, the World Wide Web. Now, what is the World Wide Web as far as you know it today, without my saying anything further? It's the internet. No, but let me follow up with that in a moment. But you'll see why it's so easily equated with the internet. Other comments? What is the web specifically? What do you know about it? When I say World Wide Web, what words, what phrases come to mind? Sorry? Websites, okay. What's the purpose of a website, or what does a website do? I mean, it allows you to access information on a computer. Essentially, what the web is one interface to the internet. Because what you have to remember is that the internet is something physical. It is a network of networks of computers. Now, that in and of itself is not helpful. Who cares if computers are connected to each other? What's important, what's beneficial about the internet is that it provides the world with services, one of which is the World Wide Web. So it's important right now from off the bat to distinguish between internet and the World Wide Web. The World Wide Web is a service of the internet. It is not the internet per se. Okay, now the World Wide Web, we've heard terms like websites and web pages, but what exactly is that? Well, let's take a look. This is a nice segue into something I mentioned before, which is the course website. Can everyone see the screen up here all right at this size? Okay, I won't point to too many specifics on the site now because it's not as important that we go over the site in detail. But what you see in front of you here is a website. And to access a website, what do you need? What piece of information do you need to what piece of information do you need before you can access a website? An address. And an address is typically of what form? Could someone just give me any old example of what a web address is? .Harvard. Okay, let's do Harvard. www.harvard.edu. That is a web address. If I go to that address, so to speak, with my web browser, where a web browser is the popular Netscape or Internet Explorer, which even if you haven't used them before, you've probably heard the terms before, you use a piece of computer software and say, I want to go to this address. Please take me there. Now, if we go, suppose now this is the address of this course website. If I type in this address up here, and actually let's do this. If I type in www.harvard.edu, you might not see it very well, but what I've just done is typed it up here. And if I then hit enter, this web browser, Internet Explorer, which I'm running here, is a piece of software that just took me to Harvard University's website. Harvard University's presence, so to speak, on the World Wide Web. Now, a lot of you are probably familiar with something like this, so I don't want to go into too many details about what the World Wide Web is per se, because in the next 2 weeks in section, you're actually going to get hands-on experience with the web. So rather than bore you with minutia of how the web works, how you use it, etc., I want to leave that to your TFs so that you can actually follow along with them in front of a computer with the exercise we're going to do, among which will be searching effectively, shopping online, useful skills. We're not just going to wander aimlessly for 2 hours in section, I promise. But let me go back for a moment and just point out the course website. As you notice on page 2 of your syllabus, there is a web address listed there. And it is www.courses.fast.harvard.edu, etc. It's at the top. It's the second paragraph on page 2 of 10 on the syllabus. And that's something that I'd like you to take a look at as soon as you get a chance. This is for those among you that have already had experience with the web and with computers. Please do not let my generalizations to the crowd tonight, as in asking you to go to this website, do this, and such. Don't let my comments today intimidate you. If you are a new computer user or a new internet user, that's fine. I am all the more glad to accommodate you at the very basic level. But for today, I just want to be able to assume that a lot of you know how to use the web, so I want to invite you to look at the web page. If you don't know how to do that, fine. Ignore what I just said, and we'll teach you within the next couple of weeks. But this web address, if you type it into Netscape or Internet Explorer, is going to take you to this web page. Now, this web page is actually going to prove very functional and very useful for this course. It's not purely aesthetic. It's not there just to tell you what the course is about. This is a website that we hope and we expect that you will use over the course of the next semester. Well, how will you use this site? You notice already that when I visit the site, I am confronted with a sheet of announcements. And if I can't figure out how to use the laser pointer in a moment, okay. Announcements. When you visit this website, you're immediately going to be presented with this list of announcements that have been posted by either myself or the teaching fellows. It is with this mechanism that we're going to post course-wide announcements. For instance, snow day, don't come to class. We'll post that kind of information here. Although with the groundhog having not seen a shadow today, I wouldn't cross your fingers for a snow day. Announcements, which you'll be immediately presented with. If you just play around, you'll notice that there are menu options up here at the top, which if you point your mouse at it and then click, you'll go to the announcements page. I mentioned earlier that all of the handouts that we ever distribute in this lecture and also section, we're going to post onto the web in the event that you miss section or lose the handout or whatever. So for instance, if you missed one of today's handouts, you just lost it, if you click this handouts link on the course website and scroll down, you're going to see, oh, assignment 1, the internet was handed out today. Definitions, 2 February 1999. Obtaining your own FAS account, sectioning form. These are all pieces of paper that you have now or have had in front of you today. And we post them there in an electronic format so that you can go view them in the comfort of your own home or at work and print them out as well. So that's to save us the trouble and you the trouble of approaching me or the TFs to say, hey, can you go photocopy this for me? If you have trouble accessing this stuff, that's fine. We're more than happy to photocopy it for you, give you physical copies, but this is here for your convenience, purely. There's an assignments link, which you might not be able to read from the back, but it's small. But if you click there, you'll see all of the assignments that we're distributing in the course. So you see up here, assignment 1 will tell you when it was distributed, when it's due, and how to get it, essentially. Again, if you attend lecture, you will get all of these handouts. We'll always print them up for you. We will never rely on the web page to distribute new materials. But again, it's here for your convenience. Now, more interesting about the website. If you notice here, there's a link called Bulletin Boards. If you click on Bulletin Boards, you're going to see a few options. Bulletin Board for Megan's section, Matt's section, John's section. If I go ahead and click on Bulletin Board for Megan's section, what you're going to see is an opportunity for your input. You notice here that there's one message listed. It's called Welcome, and it says here, posted by Megan Henry at 4:41 p.m. on Tuesday, etc. What I asked the TFs to do yesterday and today was to just post welcoming messages to all of you. Because what you'll notice here is that once you've been assigned to a section, you're going to have your own TF, whether it's Matt, John, or Megan. Now, each of these TFs are going to have these online bulletin boards, as we call them. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means this is a place where you can contact the TFs and other students in your section and myself, and they can respond to you. Now, the goal of this is to, 1, encourage intra-section participation. So even outside of the bounds of your classroom once a week for 2 hours, you can still communicate with your newfound friends or your TF or the instructor from the comfort of your own home. So for instance, if I click here on this word welcome, notice that it's underlined, what I'm going to see is Megan's message. Welcome. I am very excited to teach this class, and I hope you are excited, etc. So this was a message that she posted to the course website. Now, if you wanted to reply to Megan, all you have to do is scroll down here, and I'm simply scrolling down in the window where it says post a reply. And simply by providing your name, email address, which if you don't have already, we will get you one, and the subject of your reply, RE welcome, you can post a response to Megan. And instantaneously, your reply will appear on the web page for yourself and for other students in your section to view. So we hope that this will allow you some additional interaction with your TF and other students, and also we hope that by inviting you to answer, or rather to ask questions online, you will be able to hear responses from your TF that are posted publicly. This way, one person's question will serve many when the TF or when someone else answers it. Now similarly, there's other bulletin boards for Matt and John's section, but the idea is the same for them. The last thing I want to point out here, incidentally, that's the online syllabus, which you already have. Actually, two things. Software. I just clicked on this software link. What you will notice here is that we're going to try to simplify the process of your obtaining software for your home or your work computer. What do I mean by that? Well, any piece of software we use in section, with a couple of exceptions, we are going to make available for you for free download simply by going to this page, clicking the link, and you'll download the software to your computer. Now, if you don't know how to download software, if clicking a link sounds confusing to you, don't worry. Again, in the next couple of weeks, we'll teach you. But for those of you familiar with this terminology already, we are providing these links to software here for your convenience. And we're providing both Mac and PC versions alike. Lastly, there's a link up here called Links. And if you go there, you see two options: official course-related links, which if I quickly go there, you'll see that these are links that I or the TFs have posted to be officially endorsed course links. For instance, the top link is the PACE website. Now, you've not yet read your From This book yet, presumably, the information technology book. But in addition to coming with a CD, it also comes with a website. That is the preface of this book, which is your assignment to read for next week. It tells you what address you can go to on the World Wide Web to find supplementary material. And the cool thing about this book is that not only does the CD provide you with additional instruction on what these topics in the physical book itself are, the website also supplements the book. So if you, say, find the topic of RAM confusing, and you've read the pages dozens of times and again, and it still doesn't make sense, you've even tried the CD and the tutorial's not making sense, well, there's a third place for you to look, which is on the World Wide Web itself. And a perfect example of why the web is good for disseminating information. The book publishers have taken it upon themselves to provide you with a site from which you can learn more about specific topics. So that is why you are assigned to read at least the preface of this book for next week, because it will tell you how to access the web for this book. Again, if you haven't used the web, that's okay. Please do not be intimidated by my generalizations here. If I go back to this links page, the last thing I wanted to point out is this link. Links contributed by students. I don't want to be the only one posting interesting information to this site. I don't want the TFs being the only ones posting interesting information to this site. So in addition to soliciting your input and your questions on the bulletin boards, we also provide this link, where you can go here and view links related to many, many different categories. Categories that you might see in Yahoo or InfoSeek or Excite. These are all search engines that you might be familiar with. But the interesting thing about these subject areas is that only you, the students in this course, are going to be posting these links. So the idea of this page is that if you come across a fantastic news site or just a fun site that contains comic strips, well, we want you to come to this page, go to the link that says contribute a link, and then at the bottom of the screen here, you'll see we ask you for your name, your email address, the URL or address, synonymous, of that link, the category of the link, a description of it, and then by clicking that submit button or the contribute this link button, instantaneously your favorite news site or comic strip site or whatever will be posted for people to publicly follow. So we hope this will be a fun way for you to encounter cool links on the web and say, hey, I like this site. Some friends of mine in class might find it beneficial too. Why don't I go post it publicly? Now again, none of this is a requirement. We do not require you to participate in these bulletin boards. I don't require you to contribute links every week. But I encourage you to. And I hope that the pressure of not having to participate purely for the sake of salvaging your grade or improving your grade, I hope that you will find it all the more rewarding and fun to go read substantial and meaningful comments and links posted by other students in this class. If you ever have any questions or confusions about the website, let me or the TFs know. During section, though, we'll give you a hands-on tour of how to use this stuff. So don't worry if you don't recall how to post a link, how to participate. The TFs will go over that with you in person. Okay, that is the example I wanted to use of a website because it's particularly relevant. And I'd like to now embark on a discussion of what email is. Not on a aesthetical level, because all of you are probably roughly familiar with email, but how it relates to the internet and how it works. But before we go there, are there any other questions on the internet, or more recently now, the web? URL, I was going to leave this for the third week, but URL is universal resource locator. Now, it's a very clumsy name. Universal resource locator. URL is essentially a synonym for web address. www.harvard.edu, web address, it's a URL. They're the same thing. In week 3, we'll actually tell you what's so interesting about a URL. But for today, I want to abstract away from the details and just say that these are web addresses. Yes? Oh, that's a very good question. I don't think I pointed this out. What is a link? And again, if you're a little uncertain as to what the web content here is or how it works, again, let me reassure you that I'm purposely leaving a lot of these details to sections so that you can actually play with it yourself. But I can say that, yes, anything underlined typically in a web page, for instance, all of these words up here, arts and humanities, business and economy, those are links. Why are they links? Well, if I click on education, it links me to the education part of this page, which is empty right now, but that's because none of you students have yet posted links to this page. Again, oh, go ahead. Okay, the question is about how to get faster connections from home. It depends on your internet service provider, which is, don't worry if you don't understand that term just yet. If you could grab me right after lecture, I can pose some specific suggestions. Incidentally, you will notice that Harvard's internet connection here is very fast. Those of you with modems at home are probably used to rather slow connections. When I set out to design this site over the past couple of weeks, I intentionally left it devoid of a lot of graphics, etc., so that the download times would be fairly rapid, at least as rapid as possible for you at home. So you'll notice that essentially the only graphics are the ones in the menu bar atop the page here. So I hope it's as fast as possible for you at home. And you'll find it particularly fast in the computer labs here. Yes? Oh, okay. If you post a link to this page, it will be clickable. It is perfectly interactive. So, yes. Oh, did you have something else? Okay. Okay, let me defer that answer till week 3, because what I want to do is first wait until you have actually dabbled with this in section. I'll answer that question now, but I don't want to go into too much detail. But in week 3, we're actually going to get into the more nitty-gritty details here, the things I'm glossing over about what is the HTTP, why the : / what's a URL, etc. In brief answer, HTTP is Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Don't worry about writing that down now. It will be on your definition sheet in week 3. It's a term we'll discuss in week 3. Yes? Short answer, no. Again, we'll mention that in section, but no. You do not have to type HTTP : / in web browsers anymore nowadays. Yes, and back. Mm-hmm.
I have Netscape at home. Is Netscape Communicator different from something else?
Netscape Communicator is essentially Netscape Navigator with more features. I can explain specifically after lecture if you want to ask me, but for our purposes, the same thing. Okay, yes?
Some of us have email addresses already. Now, when we get on this Harvard,
Mm-hmm.
will that give us another email address? Or?
It will. I was going to leave discussion of the FAS accounts until the last 5 minutes of class, so let me wait until then. With everything. Okay, email. Over the next 10 minutes. Oh, go ahead.
I just had a question about the URL thing.
Okay.
Does it have to start www or can like an email address also be used?
Okay, interesting question. Short answer to the first part of your comment is no. You do not need a www in front of addresses. It depends on the company. Okay, again, these are details that I wanted to wait until we have a general sense of what things are. But the short of it is it's arbitrarily defined. It's up to Harvard to put that www there. Email addresses, let's talk about that now, and I'll contrast the two. Okay, email addresses. While I erase this, could someone essentially tell me what an email is, like physically? An electronic message. That's essentially all it is. So many of you have probably used it before, as our hand survey showed earlier. An email message essentially has 4 parts to it, let's say. So let's treat this rectangle here as an email document that we're creating on a computer. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with how to compose an email, that's fine, because next week you're going to actually do this. But for now, suppose this is an empty email message. This is just some file, so to speak, on a computer, an interface for you. You have to provide a couple of pieces of information. The first of which is who it's from. Now, most programs plug in your name, David Malin, with his email address automatically. So typically, you don't have to specify who you are, because the very fact that you're using an email program that's presumably just been set up on your computer for you means that the computer already knows who you are. Next week in section, you'll see why it already knows that. You need to, though, say who it's to. Now, in the to field, what is something that I could write, or type rather, in the to field of an email message? What's appropriate there? Sorry? The name, but if I were to just type, say, Joe user here, you need an email address. And before we discuss email addresses, why, intuitively, is this not enough? Exactly. There could be many Joe users in the world. Now, just for a moment, consider the parallel here with the US Postal Service. I mean, with a little stamp here, if you were to just send a letter, a physical letter to Joe user, that's going to get returned to sender. Why? Because Joe user, quote unquote, does not uniquely identify a human being on this earth. It could identify several human beings, although it'd be a little odd if someone's name were really Joe user. So that's why we have the US Postal Service's systems of household addresses, for instance. So Joe user is not uniquely identified by this name. He's identified by, say, 1 Mass Ave in Cambridge, Massachusetts, with a specific zip code. Now, what is significant about this address? What is better about this address than about the first thing I wrote, just Joe user? You need a geographical location, that's correct, and it also, furthermore, means that unless there's 2 Joe users living at 1 Mass Ave, Cambridge, Massachusetts, etc., this address uniquely identifies a human being on Earth. So your mailman can get you, Joe user, this email without confusing you with anyone else. Now, the same concept applies with email. Joe user most likely has a email address along the lines of something like joe at, say, email.com. Let's just suppose that that is his email address. Now, there's a couple of things of interest to point out about an email address. This is a perfectly valid email address because it has several components. The first is a username. Username. Or those of you familiar with ham radios or whatnot, this is a handle. It's just a nickname for yourself. The @ symbol, well, this is just there for syntax. With Joe is going to be at some email address. This part here is called a domain. And this is essentially the equivalent of that part of the address. Email.com refers to a specific location on the internet, a specific building or a specific company, be it what it may. It refers to something specific, a specific place on the internet. And that's why it's necessary. Joe user could be anywhere in the world, anywhere on the internet. Joe@email.com is a specific, say, office building. You know, if this is the email.com company, Joe's email is going to go here. So this is a properly formed email address, which most of you probably already have. But with what I've just said, you should probably now be able to identify what your username is and what your domain is, based on what email address you currently have. So this is what's necessary in the two fields of an email address. Now, that technically, you could technically send, now say this is from malin@fas.harvard.edu, which is my email address. Technically, you could send this email on its way. The only problem being, well, it's blank. It's not very interesting. But technically, you have a return address. You have, David Malin in this corner of your envelope. And you have your to address. You have the Joe user at 1 Mass Ave, et cetera. So even if you just seal an empty envelope, it's going to get there. Same thing with an email. If you put the from and the to fields, it's going to get there. But that's not very purposeful. What typically emails have is a subject line, which is just something where you can say dinner. Suppose the subject of this email is going to be dinner, because I'm trying to arrange with Joe user, say, dinner plans for later this week. That's the third component, subject. And then there's what's called the body of an email message. And this is the guts of your message. This is the substance, the content, the message you want to send Joe. And it could be want to do dinner, end of body. So what we have here now is, one, a legitimate email, because it's got a from and a to address, but it's also purposeful, because it actually has a subject, it tells Joe what it's about, and it has a body. It gives him a specific message. Are there any questions on syntax? Yes?
Why do you say a Harvard your name underscore your last name?
Okay, the question is, some people have addresses along the lines of, say, Jill underscore user at harvard.edu. This is purely a human convention. Harvard's administrators decided Harvard email addresses will be first name underscore last name at harvard.edu. No technical reason behind it, pure choice. And that's why you'll probably notice discrepancies in your email addresses if you already have one. Sometimes you have Jill period user at email.com, Jill user no space at email.com, whatever. The important thing for me to point out is that this is not a valid email address. For what reason do you think? The space. In internet conventions, you cannot use spaces in email addresses or in web addresses. Now, let me answer this fellow's question with regard to contrasting an email address with a web address. And then let me mention the FAS accounts that you must obtain by next week, and then we'll adjourn for the evening. Jill underscore user at harvard.edu is a valid email address. As we said before, www.harvard.edu is a valid web address. Now, what's an immediate difference between these two addresses that you might see aesthetically? One's a person, there's an @ symbol I heard. Exactly. I mean, this specifies a person somewhere on the internet. This just specifies somewhere on the internet. We'll learn in week 3 exactly why the www is usually there and why the HTTP is usually there. But in essence, these are the only forms of addresses that we're going to be learning over the course of the semester. At least these are fundamental internet practices. Email address, web address. Both serve different purposes, but the reasons behind these conventions will become apparent within the next couple of weeks. And before I talk about this green sheet and conclude, are there any questions on email? Yes? Oh, syntax, I mean it in the English language sense. It's just the conventions by which we write something. Like the @ symbol is syntax. It's like the periods and the commas in a sentence. It's just necessary. If you could quickly glance at your green sheet here, you'll notice that there is a deadline listed of next Tuesday, or by next week's section. Some of you, if not most of you, already have email addresses. That's great. You can continue using that email address to correspond with myself, with other students, with your TF. But you must get a FAS account, so to speak. What's a FAS account? This sheet will explain it in essence. But the idea is that you need to get a FAS, Faculty of Arts and Sciences, Harvard email address, because in the computer labs here, you must authenticate. You must tell the computer what a username and a password is. Otherwise, you cannot participate in sections. Furthermore, we're going to use these so-called accounts to create your final projects and whatnot. So it is very important that you do this by next week. If you cannot do it, then please speak with me, and I'll arrange for an extension for you with this, but it's only going to hinder you if you don't. Now, you notice at the bottom here, there's these several workshops. These workshops are not the same as the other workshops I mentioned. These are still optional, but if you attend any one of these workshops, the staff at Harvard will walk you through the steps of getting this required email address. So I strongly recommend that you take the hour or so that these things last to do that, because you will save yourself time and effort, because they will tell you and show you how to do it. I will be here in this room for the next hour to answer questions and to hold so-called office hours. But I do hope you will join us for the rest of the semester in this course, because I promise it will be exciting and beneficial to you. I will see you next week.
Can I just say one thing really quickly about sections? So we did the sectioning. The sections will be posted on a couple of areas as you walk out the door. Make sure you see them. There was an overwhelming majority for Tuesday. We encourage people around. If you have any concerns about where you're placed in the section, then contact me directly. I'm Megan Henry, the head TS. You can go to the webpage, me Henry at that. Contact me directly and tell me, why you can't make that section, what section you need to be in. Also, there's some people placed in a 4th section. We're not quite sure what's going to happen with that. So there's just 10 people in that. So we've got your email. That's it.
Hi. I'm still in the confused stage. I have AOL at home. I just got it.
Okay.
Okay. So they have email there, which I don't use because I haven't used it yet.
Okay.
Okay. So I know that I have my FAS. I did that, and my FAS email address.
Okay.
But I want to get that to my house.
Okay.
Will I learn how to do that?
Not at these
Okay.
workshops. If you already have the FAS account, what you can do on AOL is go to keyword telnet.
Right.
I would wait a week to do that.
Okay.
Because the TFs will show you next week in section how
They
to
will.
access the email account.
Oh.
And they're essentially going to show you how to use a program called Telnet, which will allow you to use this account.
Okay.
Once you've attended section, then go to keyword telnet on
Yeah,
AOL,
yeah.
and they'll tell you how you can do the same thing.
How I can get pine to my house.
Exactly.
So I'm thinking right. I'm thinking the right thing.
No, that's fine. Sounds good. Sure. Hi.
Hi, I just have a question for you then. I just purchased a computer myself, but I'm not online yet. Okay. All my friends tell me avoid like big AOLs or those. And I was wondering if you could recommend any servers out here, I guess, in regards to something that might make it easier for me to access.
Sure. I used AT&T WorldNet. They were good, fast enough, as fast as can be. I've used IBM GlobalNet. Equally good. I honestly don't think AOL is a bad thing, especially for students in this class. It'll make things relatively easier just because it's so much more pointed